Conservative politicians in the UK are expressing concerns over Boris Johnson's decision to stay on as caretaker Prime Minister. His time as UK leader ended dramatically after members of his own government resigned en masse, unhappy about his leadership. Boris Johnson's decision to quit as PM came after a string of scandals and blunders. There was widespread anger over what became known as Partygate, when government aides held parties at Downing Street during strict COVID lockdowns in 2020 as hundreds were dying each day. After repeated denials, Johnson was eventually fined by police in April this year, making him the first sitting British Prime Minister found to have broken the law. In June, Boris Johnson faced a vote of no confidence. He won, but his grip on power was weakened, with 148 of his Conservative MPs voting against him. Another scandal broke by the end of June, with the Conservative Party's Deputy Chief Whip Chris Pincher resigning after allegedly assaulting two guests at a private members club in London. The public was told that the PM was not aware of the allegations when appointing him, but it emerged that he had in fact known. Johnson apologised for his handling of the scandal, but it wasn't enough. A flood of ministers started resigning, including some of his key supporters. It brought Boris Johnson's time as leader to a head and saw him announce his resignation. This final chapter marking the end of a tumultuous tenure as Prime Minister.
I know that there will be many people who are relieved and perhaps quite a few who will also be disappointed.
Boris Johnson has always been an unconventional leader. He left journalism to enter public life as a Member of Parliament before becoming London's mayor in 2008. His campaign over whether Britain should leave the European Union eventually led him to Downing Street. He became Prime Minister in July of 2019 without an election, but months later secured a landslide victory. His messy blonde hair and bumbling style made him instantly recognisable, while his formidable campaigning won over seats that had never voted Conservative before. His time as PM was first dominated by Brexit. Boris Johnson's Get Brexit Done plan saw the UK formally leave the EU in January 2020. Then the coronavirus pandemic shook the world and Britain was hit hard. At one point, the UK had the highest death rate in the developed world.
I've got to be clear, we've all got to be clear, this is the worst public health crisis for a generation.
Despite catching COVID and ending up in intensive care, Boris Johnson was accused of not taking the pandemic seriously enough. A parliamentary report said delayed lockdowns caused thousands of unnecessary deaths in the UK. Boris Johnson delivered Freedom Day in July 2021, before being forced to lock down again due to the Omicron wave. Since then, rolling scandals have slowly chipped away at Boris Johnson's leadership, which reached crisis point when more than 50 members of Parliament resigned in protest. Boris Johnson was known for his gaffes and blunders, and each time he seemed to bounce back. But it was questions about integrity, character, honesty and trust that eventually saw his leadership come to an end. So where does this leave the Conservative Party, and who will become the next UK Prime Minister?